What's up guys, my name is Your Heroes and welcome back to more Gates of Hell, and today we have another development update on Gates of Hell, and this is 112. That is quite a lot, and the game has come really far in terms of development updates, and it's just amazing to see that we keep getting consistent updates from the developers to see how far this game has gone. But today we're going to be taking a deeper dive into the early war development update stage, and by the way that it looks of it, it's got a whole lot to do with the Talvisota update, which I did a vlog or an update or a development kind of review on in the last one, which basically reviewed that and the Finnish update, or sorry, the Finnish expansion faction, as well as 3 missions which will come out for it. So in this development update, that kind of comes in part of the Talvisota update as well, or the Finnish expansion pack, which will be part of it. So I'm really hoping this will be this is what it's part of. Now today in this update, it's discussing the evolution of the early war and kind of how it's going to implement in the game, and then we're going to talk about the different types of units which will be implemented in the early war and how we're able to kind of directly control it and how it will affect the gameplay of the game. And then we're going to talk about, some other units which will be included in the game, and then the last part, which will be the Talvisota, which will be discussing about how this is got to do with Talvisota update, if that makes all sense and good to you. So, and without further ado guys, I hope you do enjoy this, and let's just dive right into the reading, and hopefully I don't bore you to death in this reading, I should say. So give me a minute while I zoom in and we can get right in. So by the way, I hope this is kind of close enough you guys can see it, because I'm presuming this will be good enough. Anyway, so it says, community members. We have announced Talvisota in our previous vlog. By the way, you can just click here, which will take you to the previous vlog talking about the Talvisota update / expansion pack, which revealed that we will add Finland and the 3 conflicts it fought between 1939 and 1945. Along with the release of the Finnish expansion pack, and because the Winter War started in 1939, we will release the free content we will release the free, and it highlights free, very bold, content update 3, which will introduce the early war stages. So by the way, so the content update 3 will be free, will be a free update. You will not have to pay for it. In this update, we will focus on the definition of early war and how it influences gameplay, as I said. So let's talk about the evolution of the early war stages in this game. So it says, with the introduction of early war, the landscape of multiplayer will dramatically evolve. So when you're in multiplayer, the evolution of the early war, when you're doing like in a multiplayer PvP, it's saying it's going to drastically change. It's going to drastically evolve differently to, your usual Gates of Hell, to your usual multiplayer battles. Early war feels very different from other periods. Most importantly, infantry plays a bigger role, and I completely agree with that. It does, because in 1939, armor had not yet been developed to the point of being impregnable to anti-tank weaponry, but there were cases, as you will find, where one needed creative ways to take out a tank or vehicle, and I completely agree with that. Because as I said, in the kind of early stages of the war, that tanks weren't in such big use at the time, so they're more relying on infantry to come up with creative ways to take out tanks. If there was some, if factions had it, early in those times, that Britain was actually the first. I think it was Germany. Or sorry, it was Britain who came up with the first ever tank back in World War One. But I think during World War Two, I think it was possibly the Russians or one of the bigger factions that came up with the tanks first. We improved. we improved how the AI can use anti-tank grenades in our previous game update, but let's be honest, it kind of has. I have to agree, the AI's definitely stepped up its game with how it takes out tanks nowadays. And in this one step of many, and in our previous game update, and this is one step of many towards making early war a novel and exciting experience. So yeah, I completely agree. This is actually one of many steps that Gates of Hell have taken to improve the AI. I mean, there's still many things to improve about the AI, but one of the things that I can really get upon with the developers is that the AI have improved their game, their time with the on killing tanks in creative ways, such as using anti-tank weapons or anti-tank guns, which are more effective against tanks than actual tanks, if we're being honest. Anyway, let's move on to the next section. So yeah, that was the kind of the evolution of the kind of the early war stage and how it's kind of going to be possibly implemented into the game. Now let's move on to one of the units which are going to take a huge part in this early war update, and it's artillery. And as we all know, we all hate artillery. Artillery is ever present in the battlefield in a wider array of types and sizes, but there are numerous ways to counter it. New units, which we will announce when we finish implementing them, will be introduced for that reason. So we have new types of artillery coming into this update as well. Now, because this is the early war, the only possibly artillery I can thinking of is like a man-made artillery, which two men use, but we already have that in the game. But I generally don't really know what other artillery there could be in this game that could possibly take out, during the early war stages. We have also taken this opportunity to further develop the artillery in the game and overhaul it. I mean, to be honest, the artillery does kind of need an overhaul. Firstly, we have given artillery units new max ranges with mathematical model that best adapts the historical max ranges to our game scenarios. Now, when I've read first that, I kind of, my brain just kind of imploded, then outploded, then just I kind of got confused, because I'm guessing from what I'm getting at what it's getting at is that it's basically the max ranges with mathematical model that adapts the historical ranges. So historical max ranges will correspond with the artillery in the game as well. So the artillery the new artillery that will be implemented in this update at max range will also now be implemented in the game as well to the max range. So it's more historically accurate when it comes to kind of artillery ranges and all that, which is what I'm kind of getting at when it's saying that. We are also working on new feature coming to Call to Arms Gates of Hell, direct and indirect fire switchability, which to us I think is kind of already in the game. I don't know why it said that, because indirect and direct fire switchability is kind of already in. It will make certain units be able to bridge the gap between that classic direct fire weapons and artillery, and therefore make it more accessible to counter long range weapons. So kind of like in Call to Arms, not the Gates of Hell, but the original Call to Arms, which already has this feature, which has the indirect and direct fire mode, where it's, how do I explain it? It's harder to say, it's more easier to show it. And if you go into like one of my game just kind of, my OBS exploded there. If you go to one of my Call to Arms videos, any of them, you'll see the difference between the indirect and direct switchability, which you will now see in this game. But I think it's already got this. I don't know why it's saying that, because it kind of feels like the direct and indirect fire switchability is kind of already there, but I could be wrong, which I am obviously. We will reveal more about this feature on our developer Telegraph channel on our Discord server once we have reached the directed results. So once basically we'll get a wee bit more information about how this works, because I'm actually still a wee bit confused on this myself. So once I read this, hopefully I'll be able to explain it more, and hopefully I'll explain it to you guys and get a better understanding of how this indirect and direct fire switchability works. So that is kind of artillery and the new direct and indirect fire switchability mode works per se. And you can see we've got some more nice HD pictures here. Alright, moving on to the second last topic which we need to cover today, which is units. So which are the most important, which is a main theme of this game. We created lots of units, squads and assets for the early war periods, some of which were used throughout World War II, which is true. From legendary vehicles like the SDKFZ 222, try and say that 10 times fast, to beasts like the 280mm BR5, the bigger brother of Stalin's sledgehammer, going through heavy haulers like the SDKFZ6, and the lightest but spiciest of weaponry like the Maxim quadruple machine gun. There will be much more. We'll list them in one of our next updates. So a lot of new vehicles, or a lot of vehicles going to be added to the game soon, and hopefully I'm really interested to see the Maxim quadruple machine gun, which what I'm kind of thinking is in my head is kind of just like 3 machine guns just attached to one another, and just, I don't know, that's the way kind of like my mind is kind of describing that, but I'm definitely wrong in saying that. But yes, some very, very scary weapons, and I'm really excited to see this 280mm BR5, which will absolutely be an epic thumbnail for my YouTube video, so thank you. With the addition of early war in combination with domination game mode, which we introduced in the community update 1, the variety and possible combinations for multiplayer and Gates of Hell have already increased by quite a margin. Yeah, and I agree. It has increased by a lot. With the arrival of the Finnish nation, the battlefields will be spiced up once more. There will be all sorts of new units and locations. We won't stop there, as we have plans to add new game modes and new nations in the future. We'll reveal these when we're ready to do so. So lots and lots of new exciting game modes and nations which will be coming up very soon. I'm hoping, I don't know, they'll do it once they're ready to do so. So very excited to see that. Last but not least, in our update, which is a Talvasota, which is probably one of the biggest updates or that Gates of Hell have ever done. All of the development we mentioned above was required to make Talvasota in the first place. Those that acquire the Talvasota expansion will be presented with a series of unique new units and game mechanics. Finland's military arsenal consists of previously purchased foreign units such as tanks, artillery and aircraft. Besides this, it has built several defense lines comprising a fair number of unique bunkers. During the Winter War, they added a lot of captured materials to the arsenal. Much of it was modified for Finnish use, producing equipment that was used externally by the Finns. So basically what they're saying is that all the equipment that the Finns, between the Finns and the Russians during the 1939 and 1945, a lot of it was just second-hand vehicles or second-hand equipment or used vehicles from another nation. Basically, that's what they're saying. And it's going to be, but it was modified for Finn use, so it'll be easier for the Finns to kind of fight with instead of just keeping it the way it was. So they kind of improved, so they put like quality over quantity. Of course, as you have come to expect from us, we are not simply duplicated the original item. We have implemented all the Finnish modifications and improvements. Finland provide quality over quantity, as I said, which can be intensely rewarding and sometimes unforgiving. above all else, it will be absolutely unique. So I completely agree. It'll be absolutely unique. I can't wait to see what kind of modifications were actually added to these equipments and tanks and all these sorts of things, equipments that were added to the fin. So I'm really excited to see what these modifications will turn out to be and see how Gates of Hell will kind of historically maybe match them up as well. And as you can see, some of the most ridiculous vehicles that I've ever seen. Look at that. That is kind of like a very unique. So that kind of looks like a KV2 turret with a BT2 with a BT7 hull, and there's just no tracks. We've got kind of the wheels for it, but there's no like tracks around it. But that is one of the, I can tell that is like probably one of the vehicles that are going to be added in, and it looks like it's kind of got this derp gun, which is going to be absolutely ridiculous at dealing with a lot of infantry and possibly good at killing off anti-tank weapons. A lot of this tank just generally just looks, it looks stupid, but it looks absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, last but not least, content. That's it for our first global explanation on the addition of the early war period. In our next dev blogs, we will be more specific on the contents of the Talvasota and the content update 3 and how they will be integrated. We also plan to do dev vlogs about some of the Talvasota single player skirmish missions, which are all based on those wintry scenes that made for unprecedented, savage, ice cold and bitter battles. That's all for now. Thanks for stopping by and see you on the battlefield. So there you go, guys. That is the development update 112 for the early war. So this was basically a kind of a look, kind of an information taken on what the early war is going to be, and there is going to be another possibly development update or even a content update 3, which I'm hoping that'll be the next one, which will be content update 3 and the Talvasota expansion pack. I'm hoping that will be the next one, which will explain more what this has said, and hoping it will be a lot more in-depth detail to what this is said here, because I know much of it was kind of said, but it kind of said, oh, you have to wait for the next update for us to kind of go in more detail. So they kind of explained a wee bit here, but this is generally not even enough to kind of describe what is going to be happening in this content update 3 and Talvasota expansion pack. All we know is that there's going to be the Finnish faction and 3 main missions for the Finnish war, which will be in the early war stages. So this was basically just explaining the early war stages and what's going to happen in it, but basically there's going to be another possibly development update which will explain more in detail. But that's it for today, guys. I really hope you did enjoy this video. If you did, leave a like on this video. I think this has definitely got a promising look to it on the early war stages. I can definitely tell this is going to be the battlefield, and the way people are going to have to play it is going to be a lot different to your usual battles, because it is early war, so the equipment isn't as up to date as it is now. So you're definitely going to have to be more creative in your battles and definitely kind of think outside the box when it comes to the early war stages in Gates of Hell when it does come to the battle. So tell me what your thoughts are in the comments down below. Do you think that this is, to be honest, a really good change? Do you think this is going to maybe spice up the battle a wee bit more, instead of your regular kind of big battles with KV1s and all and Panzer 3s and just lots of more modern equipment? And do you think this is going to be a huge change, or do you think this is just looks awful and it just doesn't feel right, and we should just stick with the kind of the normal kind of 1945 style and so on? But that's it today, guys. Thank you so much for watching and our support, and I will see you in the next video. See you later and goodbye.